it's Shelby, otherwise known as Shelbizleee here on YouTube, and today I wanted to talk about something that you guys keep requesting, and that is composting. Now, I am no composting expert. I will not say that I am by any means an expert, but I want to give you all the options for what you can do for composting, even if you live in an apartment or if you don't have someone who will come and pick it up on your curbside. We're going to discuss all of the options, and then I'm going to talk about some things that are compostable and some things that are not. We'll talk a little bit about ratios and all that kind of good stuff. But I did want to say that this video is sponsored by Thrive Market, which might sound weird because if you know that I've worked at Thrive Market for a while, you know that they are an online store where you can go and buy all kinds of different things actually, but largely they sell things like groceries. I use it to stock my pantry. I've also used it to buy zero waste swaps in the past. They sell a lot of amazing things and they are a very ethical company. But this video is kicking off Thrive Market's Sustainability Month with the first week being all about composting. That's because Earth Day is in April. I'm sure you guys know that. And so they wanted to dedicate the month of April to talking all things sustainability. So we're not talking about any products or anything like that in this video. We're just going to be talking about composting. But make sure you check out Thrive Market because they actually do have an on-site composting facility. They also donate a ton of food to homeless shelters and all sort of things. There's a huge list of things that Thrive Market does that makes them such an ethical and sustainable company. And it's the coolest thing ever that a company is sponsoring me just to talk about composting and not about any products or anything like that. So make sure you check them out at the link in the description. If you want to pick anything up, I do always have a 25% off discount code with them and a 1-month free trial to their membership. So make sure you check them out, and let's go ahead and get into Composting 101. What even is compost? Well, compost is basically when you take things that are natural materials and can be naturally broken down in the anaerobic process of composting, basically recycling natural materials into soil so that it can be reused instead of breaking down over thousands of years in a landfill. My mom said, you know, my cucumber plants grew like crazy and all I put on them was horse. That's organic, isn't it? And what are the benefits to composting? Well, that's one of the ones I just mentioned. You get to turn things back into soil and give it back to the earth. So we are reusing and recycling. It's like nature's way of recycling, I guess you could say. Actual things that could be reused for something good. So turning food scraps back into soil is much better than letting your food scraps go to landfill. A, take up the space it takes to be in a landfill, and B, when food breaks down with improper oxygen in a landfill, it's not composted properly, it releases greenhouse gases, which is not something we want to be doing. Or we could turn our food scraps back into something good. We don't want to send it to the landfill and turn it into something bad, like greenhouse gases, which cause climate change. All right, so there are 4 main ways that people compost, or at least that I know of about composting. Number 1 is a backyard compost. Probably the one that most of you want to do because it's a very fun experiment to try to get the ratios just right and create your own compost. Recycling food scraps back into the earth is such a cool thing to do, and I know a lot of you guys want to get more into that. So that is one of the options. The second option is if you're lucky enough to have curbside composting, where you just put your scraps or your yard waste or whatever into a bin and your city comes and picks it up and they compost it. Where we are moving, because you guys know we're buying a house soon, they actually have free curbside composting, which is so exciting. Way number 3 is a worm bin, which this is one why I say I am not an expert. I have never tried. I actually have a friend, Sustainably Vegan, Emmy. She made a video all about her composting situation, and I'll link it up here. You guys can go check it out, or I'll link it in the description. So that's a way you can compost indoors. Very interesting. Again, I've never tried that. And then the 4th thing that you can do is keep your scraps until you have time to take it to your local community garden, someone in your neighborhood that composts, or someone at the farmer's market who's willing to take it because they make their own compost.
All right, guys, so I went and got this bucket. I'm gonna take it out to the compost. I take all the garden scraps and I go compost it. And we are headed to the compost. There's the compost bin. Oh, it always smells so lovely. Like, I wish there was smell vision, because man, there's some great stuff cooking in there. But basically everyone's scraps from the garden go right in there. So that's where our tomatoes and our carrots are going. And then close this sucker up.
Those are the 4 main ways, and I'm going to break each of them down at least just a little bit. So number 1, composting in your backyard is a very tricky thing to learn how to do, but it is very fun to experiment with it. Honestly, it's not one of those things that you can have a step-by-step guide to and you're gonna get the perfect compost. It's a lot of trial and error and balancing what they call the greens with the browns. So your greens are your more live type of food scraps. So what you're using in your kitchen, those scraps would be considered green because they have not been like dried out and that sort of thing. And then your browns would be a lot of times your yard waste, so like leaves that you've raked up or branches that have fallen, those sort of things. You want to have a good mixture between the greens and the browns. Those two things plus water and oxygen is how you come up with an amazing compost to turn back into soil. If you're going to try to build a backyard compost, you're going to want to have either a bin, so you can buy bins from the store actually, like the big bins that you can like roll into compost, or you could just build your own out of like wood pallets and just mix it up. You are going to have to mix it and aerate it because in order for things to compost properly, they have to have proper oxygen. Again, this is a scenario that is probably the most complicated, but also probably the most fun, but there is no perfect step-by-step guide to composting. You'll have to figure out the ratios with how many food scraps you have, with how your compost is doing. I can't give you exact measurements or anything like that. So number 2 is just if you're lucky enough to have your city come and pick it up for you. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory. You just order it through your city, you call your city and ask them, hey, do you guys offer composting? And they'll tell you yes or no, and you can have it come to your home or not. Way number 3 is the worm composting bin. Again, I've never tried this, so I can't give you a lot of advice on this, but there are a ton of resources online where you can go and purchase a composting kit for inside your home, and this is great for people who live in apartments or anyone who doesn't have a yard, or if you live in a place where it's like too cold or too hot even to have a proper compost. This is a solution for that sort of thing. So if anybody watching this video has tried one of those compost situations, leave it in the comments, let us know your best advice and let us know how it went for you. I would love to hear more about that. And then way number 4 is kind of how I've been mixing it up with my backyard compost that I've had while living in this apartment and taking it to my community garden. So what you can do is keep food scraps either in a compost bin in your home, or we keep ours out on our front doorstep, or you can even keep your food scraps in your freezer, and then whenever you have the time or whenever it gets full or whenever it's time, like your community garden is having open composting drop off, or it's farmers market day and you can go take it to a farmer down the street, that is an awesome solution also for people who live in apartments. You might also make friends with a neighbor or start a composting group in your neighborhood or your apartment complex even, but that's a great solution for people who live in small spaces and again don't have a yard, just to keep their compost scraps, their food scraps in a certain area until you can take it to someone who can compost it for you. So now that we know the benefits of composting, the ways you can compost, the next question in your mind I'm sure is, what can I compost? Well, first of all, like I said already, all raw fruits and veggie scraps. So either things that have gone bad in your fridge that you weren't able to get to in time, or things that you're cutting up, chopping up while you're cooking that are scraps, maybe like the end of a cucumber or the peel of garlic, something like that. All of those things are compostable. Now, I've heard a lot of people question whether or not you can compost cooked food. I've heard many professionals say that you can, and I've also heard some say, it's not so great. I say give it a try. If your compost ends up not working out properly with your cooked foods, then scrap them. If you decide after a little while that the cooked foods aren't doing so well in your compost, you can stop adding them, but I do think that in my experience it's worked out, so I highly encourage you at least give it a try before you start throwing out your perfectly good cooked food that could be turned back into soil. You can also compost yard waste, so anything like fallen limbs, leaves, grass, anything that naturally grows outside and is a living plant, you can compost those things into your compost, and that's really going to help your compost have a good balance between like wet foods and dry brown goods to make the perfect mix of soil. You can also compost things like eggshells. I'm not positive about animal products. I've never eaten animal products in my home, so I've never composted things like that. But I have heard people say they do compost animal scraps. I just am not anywhere near versed in that sort of area, so maybe you could do some other research on that. But I definitely know that some people do compost their animal products. But the worry there is that animals will start coming and getting into your food, and it also brings a lot of different bacteria to your compost to add animal products, so it is a little bit more tricky on that end. You can also compost things like papers, cardboards, anything like that in your home, like soiled pizza boxes are a great thing to compost. You can also compost like unbleached napkins or anything like that, anything that is a natural material. You can even compost natural fibers like cotton and linen. Those things are completely plant-based and can be broken down in a compost. It's gonna take a lot longer than something that's like just a veggie scrap, but those are compostable items. And that's basically it. That is Composting 101. What is composting? What are the benefits? What are the methods? And what can be composted? If I forgot to mention anything in this video, make sure you leave it in the comments if you have any questions. I'll be happy to do my best to answer them. I'll do the research for you if you don't know where to look, and I will also be able to point you in the right direction. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out Thrive Market, and you can head over to their Instagram. I'll be sharing more about composting over on their Instagram during this month, and I'll also be talking more about recycling on this channel and over on their social media. So make sure you check them out, and also if you want to test out the membership, you get a 1-month free trial and 25% off of your order. So click the link in the description. Thank them for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys for watching, and remember, until next time, you cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that you can do. Bye guys.